On the surface, One Piece may appear to be a lighthearted search for lost treasure, and while it remains every bit as whimsical and entertaining as when Luffy first set sail from Dawn Island, Oda has been slowly constructing an epic fantasy masterpiece which pits the forces of good and evil, light and darkness, freedom and oppression against one another in a war to decide the fate of this world of pirates. We see this reflected in the day and night or sun and moon symbols Oda uses to characterize this overarching conflict. Luffy is a warrior of liberation, representative of the sun. He possesses the power of the mythic sun god Nika, was born on Dawn Island, sails aboard the ship Thousand Sunny, and is destined to fulfill many long-held prophecies by delivering the world's new dawn. The world has awaited a hero for centuries, if not millennia, with the night or darkness signifying the world's oppressors, the enemies of freedom. During this long dark night, the moon represents hope, as signified by Joy Boy's closest friends and allies around the world. The minks are powered up by the full moon, the clans of Wano all have names based on the moon, the fishmen dream of someday walking the path toward the sun, the giants celebrate the winter solstice to mark the death and rebirth of the sun, and those who carry the name D are considered enemies of these self-proclaimed false gods who presently hold power. Their name could reference the half moon, hidden by the clouds, as a symbol of fellowship and hope. It's important to understand what this symbolism signifies, because it tells us that despite his protests to the contrary, One Piece tells the story of Luffy's hero's journey, unifying it in structure with an untold number of mythic stories. You are likely already familiar in some form with the cyclic pattern of the hero's journey.
A hero is born out of a childhood trauma or out of a disaster that must be avenged.
You're thinking of a superhero.
We all have a hero in our heart.
Importantly, the hero's journey is descriptive rather than prescriptive. It's not a formula or cookie-cutter mold for telling stories. Evaluating stories through the lens of the hero's journey or the mythic structure outlined by Campbell offers us a loose heuristic, meaning not all stories perfectly conform to all elements of this pattern.
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
In The Hero with 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell distilled what he described as the monomyth, a universal structure which underlies myths, folktales, and fictional stories told in societies around the world and throughout time. Based on his work in comparative mythology, Campbell's assertion is that this mythic structure arises spontaneously through storytelling because it is representative of our inner being, or psyche, as well as our place as individual beings within the cosmos. Tales based on this mythic structure are thus popularized because they are so deeply resonant. The basic structure of the hero's journey is first departure from the known or ordinary world into one of mystery and adventure. On the road, the hero recruits allies, faces challenges, and ultimately must undergo a great ordeal in order to be transformed and rewarded with a gift or treasure which can be used for the betterment of the ordinary world from which they first departed. The last phase of the journey is the return. The transformed hero returns to the ordinary world equipped with the gift or treasure acquired on their adventure and empowered to face the final challenge, which may entail improving or transforming the society or the broader story world. The exact terms used to define the steps of the hero's journey vary, but the general pattern is consistent: an inward journey of self-reflection, catalyzed by an adventure into the unknown, transformation and improvement, and then return, marked by an outward struggle to synthesize and reintegrate the transformed hero with the world. Despite the simplicity and universality of this model, there are seemingly limitless ways to retell stories patterned on the monomyth. Many popular works of fiction, including Star Wars, Harry Potter, and importantly One Piece, are heavily based on the monomyth. In Hollywood, following the success of Star Wars, the hero's journey has been frequently and intentionally used as a blueprint for screenwriting. As noted by Christopher Vogler in The Writer's Journey, even a film as unconventional as Pulp Fiction contains distinct elements of this mythic structure.
And I am the tyranny of evil men. But I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
While some writers intentionally pattern their tales on the mythic structure outlined by Campbell and Vogler, others do so subconsciously. Honestly, I believe Oda likely falls into the latter category. It's unlikely One Piece's adherence to the mythic structure of the hero's journey is intentional or deliberate. Thus, the hero's journey describes an emergent, spontaneous pattern in storytelling. Just as the structure of stories may be based on immutable universal patterns, so too are many of the character archetypes which inhabit works of fiction.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
Campbell was himself influenced by the work of Carl Jung, who proposed the existence of archetypal forces emergent from what he described as the collective unconscious.
I should warn you that while Fraser is a Freudian, I am a Jungian. So there'll be no blaming Mother today.
You might think of this as shared source code. We're all conscious beings running on the same operating system and have the same potential for good and evil. These archetypes are ancient patterns of personality to which individuals may conform. They manifest in the real world, taking different shapes or forms when filtered through the subjective lens of the individual. The archetypes are thus likened to masks picked up and worn by individuals over the course of their life. Individual people or characters may manifest elements of multiple archetypes simultaneously or at different points in time.
We all change. When you think about it, we're all different people, all through our lives. And that's okay, that's good, you gotta keep moving so long as you remember all the people that you used to be.
Take a snapshot of any civilization in any part of the world at any point in time, and though the faces of individuals manifesting these archetypes will be different, you will invariably see the same patterns of personality represented. The hero, the mentor, the shadow, and so on. In fiction, character archetypes may be used to fulfill specific defined narrative or thematic functions. The meeting with the mentor is a common facet of hero myths, as described by Joseph Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Campbell referred to the common form adopted by this archetypal figure as the helpful crone or the fairy godmother. But the mentor appears in many shapes and sizes, commonly exemplified throughout popular works of fiction. Archetypal mentor figures often provide supernatural aid and help conduct the protagonist from their ordinary world onto the road of adventure and change. Shanks, Rayleigh, Kozaburo, Koshiro, Bellamere, Zeph, Hirulek, Kureha, Clover, Saul, Tom, Tiger, Otohime, Pedro, Ushimaru, and Rocinante all serve as examples of characters who positively mentored members of the Straw Hat Pirates, present and potentially future, as well as their closest allies, by providing guidance and direction at pivotal moments in their lives. Commonly in myth, the mentor imparts special knowledge or gifts which equip the hero for their journey, and accordingly we have frequently seen mentor figures in One Piece serve this particular function. Shanks not only acted as a role model for Luffy by instilling in him positive moral values, he's also responsible for indirectly providing him the Gomu Gomu fruit and for gifting Luffy his treasured straw hat, an object later implied to have greater significance than has been fully revealed. Often those who wear the mask of the mentor once underwent their own hero's journey, as we see represented in Rayleigh, Roger's former first mate, who later in life guided Luffy and instructed him for 2 years while the crew was separated. We have seen repeatedly that the positive influence of the mentor has been instrumental in shaping the Straw Hats into the heroes they are slowly becoming. However, Oda has also subverted this relationship model through his villain characters, particularly in the New World. The inversion of the mentor-mentee relationship is fundamentally predatory and acts as a corrupting influence. Big Mom, Doflamingo, Orochi, and Kanjuro were all guided onto their current paths by dark mentors who approached them at vulnerable points in their lives. Importantly, we have seen increasing thematic focus on cycles of abuse and hatred exemplified through these dark mentor bonds. For example, Treble radicalized young Doflamingo and shaped him into an underworld broker. In the mold of the mentor, he even gifted Dofi his devil fruit and the weapon used to assassinate his father Homing. As an adult, Doflamingo later recognized in young Law the same hatred which resided in his own heart, and attempted to corrupt Law in similar fashion. We thus see a growing trend in the New World of dark mentor figures responsible for creating the monsters with whom Luffy and crew come into conflict. These villains were abused or manipulated to varying degrees, but later became abusers and corrupting dark mentors themselves, passing on the will they inherited and perpetuating the pattern through successive generations. Notably, just as we have seen those abused or manipulated turn into abusers and manipulators, we have also seen the cyclical pattern of positive mentorship as a counterbalancing force for good in the One Piece world. Those who have been positively mentored in turn pass on the will they have inherited to others. In fact, this is one of the central themes of the entire series and the mechanism by which One Piece and the true history have been guarded for centuries: inherited will. We can even see the pattern of positive mentorship represented through members of the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy's values and dreams were shaped by his childhood encounters with Shanks, and now as he draws very near to assuming the mantle of Pirate King, Luffy has taken up the role of mentor to Momonosuke and Tama. In fact, though he maintains his lovably goofy and carefree demeanor, Luffy has significantly matured in the New World and grown into his newfound position of leadership. Throughout the raid on Onigashima, Luffy has never lost sight of his goal or the stakes involved, and has been instrumental in helping Momonosuke reach his true potential. On Fishman Island, Luffy said he didn't want to be viewed as a hero, and in typical Luffy fashion, used a food-based metaphor to explain his rationale. Because, you see, a hero is a person who shares their meat, and Luffy just wants to eat his fill and then some.
I don't care what they say about me, I just want to eat.
but this same metaphor has been used to demonstrate Luffy's maturation as he has battled against two Emperors of the Sea, Big Mom and Kaido, on their home turf. He went from Whole Cake Island, a land of feast and excessive indulgence, to Wano, a vast and desolate land of famine. Despite Luffy downplaying his heroic qualities a few arcs earlier by insisting on his own desire to overindulge his appetite, inspired by meeting Tama, he's now actively fighting to make Wano a land where no one will go hungry, and was enraged by the Beast Pirates wasting Oshiruko because Tama and the other people of Wano have been forced to go without for so long. Shanks' values inspired Luffy, and now he's passing on those same values to a new generation. We have also seen that this cyclic pattern of hatred and abuse can be broken, and I suspect these themes and recurrent motifs have been intentionally introduced because they have global significance to the broader One Piece world. Law managed to avert the trap of the heavenly demon spider because a force for good entered his life at a critical moment, and even then it further took reinforcement and assistance from Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates for him to finally break free from Doflamingo's grasp. That ray of hope is exactly what the Straw Hat Pirates represent. As Vivi said to the crowd in Alubarna when she set out to sea to infiltrate Baroque Works and dismantle Crocodile's plot, in the darkness of the storm, she encountered a ship and crew which gave her a push and encouraged her to see the light. The Straw Hat Pirates, sailing aboard their ship Thousand Sunny, travel the seas in pursuit of impossible dreams, and along the way bring light to the dark places they visit. A new dawn is coming for the One Piece world, and I suspect that when the true history is revealed, we will learn that this cycle of abuse and manipulation has been perpetuated in the halls of power for centuries, if not millennia. But importantly, the implicit issue not yet addressed in discussing the pattern of victims becoming villains and reproducing others in their same mold is primordial evil, or original sin. It's all well and fine to say evil begets evil, but there must have been a true origin point. We know the cycle can be broken, that a new dawn can rise on dark seas, and that individuals can change. But what is the source of corruption in the One Piece world? When and how did this cycle begin? Who does Luffy need to punch to make the world better? The mortal players currently inhabiting the stage didn't start the fire. No, they didn't light it, but they tried to fight it. Kaido, Big Mom, and even Teach represent localized rather than global evil. They are symptoms, but not the disease. What evil lies at the heart of the One Piece world, and how must it be confronted? Luffy is currently on the road of challenges where he meets allies and faces enemies in the archetypal molds of the Shadow and the Threshold Guardian in preparation for his great ordeal, transformation following discovery of One Piece. The last part of the story is a separate voyage of return. The Great War foreshadowed by Whitebeard, precipitated by rising up to challenge the world and shoulder the burden of history in the way Roger never could. The trials have become harder for the Straw Hats, not only because their enemies have grown stronger, but because their enemies' motivations have become more complex, and they have challenged the crew to see the bigger picture, to widen their focus to the broader conflicts in the One Piece world around them, as well as the deep-rooted systems which continually produce villains in the same mold. Because the Straw Hats are now grappling not only with powerful pirates standing in the way of them achieving their personal goals, but also with entrenched systems perpetuated by the very same forces, inherited will, dreams, and fate, which propel them toward Laughtail. And this is by design. The Straw Hats need to face their own dark side, so to speak, before they will be ready to rise up and challenge the world. In fiction, the archetypal shadow is most often representative of the hero's own dark potential. For example, in Star Wars, Darth Vader is a representation of what Luke could become if he turns to the dark side. Within the world of One Piece, Blackbeard fills the role of the hero's shadow to Luffy. Like Luffy, Teach also pursues impossible dreams, is guided by the hand of fate, and seeks to maximize personal freedom. Yet Teach is Luffy's moral antithesis in that though he may want the same things as Luffy, he has repeatedly demonstrated his willingness to lie, cheat, steal, and murder to achieve his goals. He's not Luffy's thematic foil, but as the hero's shadow, questions the validity of the virtues Luffy espouses and demonstrates the dark potential of Luffy's dream and ambition. I bring up this topic because, importantly, the Shadow, the main character's evil opposite, is most often not synonymous with or directly representative of the cosmic source of primordial evil within the story world. Reusing the Star Wars example, Darth Vader is Luke's shadow, but the Emperor is the ultimate source of evil, the one who tempted Vader to the dark side and sought to subdue Luke in similar fashion. This distinction is important because the way the protagonist reconciles the conflict with the Shadow is often quite different from the destruction or mitigation of the primordial evil force. This is sort of intuitive. The shadow is a representation of the protagonist's potential internal evil, while the latter is an external evil force which attacks and corrupts the entire ecosystem of the story world. The New World is the last leg of the voyage before Luffy and crew will be equipped with heavily guarded knowledge and power to confront this primordial evil, and thus are first being challenged by the Shadow archetype. Antagonists like Kaido, Big Mom, and Teach. In One Piece, those like Kaido who failed to break the chain, who were taken in and persuaded by an evil influencer, are tragic in their own way, even if they aren't portrayed in a sympathetic light. Learning about the history of the Sun Pirates did nothing to soften readers' view of Arlong, for example, but we are now better able to understand how he became such a monster and to recognize the inherent tragedy that in a different set of circumstances he may have been much different. We further see through Hody Jones that the true form of evil is the entrenched pattern which continuously produces villains in the same mold. We thus later see both how this pattern perpetuates and importantly how it can be broken. Luffy, like Roger and Joy Boy before him, walks the path of the cyclic hero's journey. Importantly, the hero's journey is a microcosm of what Joseph Campbell referred to as the Cosmogonic cycle. In myth, the cyclic journey is undertaken by both individuals who pick up and wear the mask of the hero, as well as the society or the story world as a whole. Thus, the Cosmogonic cycle may be understood to represent the pattern or arc of destruction and recreation of the universe, the world, or a society. In The Hero with 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell wrote, "Schism in the soul, schism in the body social, will not be resolved by any scheme of return to the good old days, archaism, or by programs guaranteed to render an ideal projected future, futurism, or even by the most realistic, hard-headed work to weld together again the deteriorating elements. Only birth can conquer death, the birth not of the old thing again, but of something new. When our day is come for the victory of death, death closes in. There is nothing we can do except be crucified and resurrected, dismembered totally, and then reborn." The narrative pattern of the Cosmogonic cycle is described by Campbell as the waking from deep sleep, emanation, followed by dissolution back into the world of dream. The known world, the society, emanates forth from the source of creation, then dissolves back into a dreamlike state, a process likened to death and rebirth. Fittingly, Oda has used day and night or sun and moon symbolism to characterize the central narrative arc throughout the series. The world is presently in a state of night and waiting for a future promised day, a new dawn. Luffy, born on Dawn Island, set sail in the first chapter titled Romance Dawn, and has gathered a crew aboard his ship, the Thousand Sunny. Together they bring light to the dark places they visit, and someday very soon will fulfill these many long-held prophecies. Make no mistake, Luffy is a fated hero, and as stated in the first chapter, the story of One Piece is Luffy's voyage of destiny. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like. If you want to be notified when future videos are posted, please consider subscribing. It really helps this channel grow, and I really appreciate your support. But most important, make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments.